Welcome back, learner. I want you to imagine you're scanning a rental agreement for a new apartment. You see the move-in date, you check the rent amount, and, you just sign.
Right, because who actually reads the whole thing?
Exactly. But then, like, 2 months later, you realize you missed this tiny clause starting with the word unless, and suddenly you're on the hook for thousands of dollars in maintenance fees.
Oh, yeah. That's a classic trap.
I mean, or think about the last time you blindly clicked agree on a software update, just completely glossing over what you just gave some massive tech company permission to do with your data.
We all do it. It's just habit at this point.
Totally. Well, today we are tearing down the idea that language arts is just about, sitting at a wooden desk trying to appreciate what a 19th century poet meant by a yellow flower.
Yeah, I mean, the subject really suffers from a major branding problem. We tend to treat language arts as this purely decorative skill, like a bit of culture to sprinkle on top of the real subjects like math or science or engineering.
Right, like it's just extra credit.
Exactly. But the reality is that the modern world operates entirely on language. The consequences of misinterpreting a text or, failing to articulate your own thoughts precisely, they're immediate. And
Yeah.
they are very tangible.
Which brings us to the source material for today's deep dive. We are looking at excerpts from this fascinating and honestly high-stakes educational guide called Understanding Modern Japanese Language Arts, Reading, Thinking, and Expressing Ideas in Your Own Words.
It's a fantastic text.
It really is. And the central thesis here is that reading is no longer just about absorbing words on a page. It's a fundamental toolkit for survival. It's about evaluating how language is actively shaping the reality around you.
Yeah, and to build that toolkit, the guide does something very deliberate. It completely steps away from literature and fiction.
But really, a language arts guide with no fiction?
Right, because it argues that if you want to survive in society, you have to master the mechanics of two specific types of everyday texts. The first is the critical essay, and the second is the practical text.
Okay, let's look at the critical essay first, because I think most of us probably remember slogging through dense essays in school and feeling like, I don't know, the writer was just trying to sound smarter than
Oh,
us.
absolutely. The classic wall of text.
Right. But this guide frames it completely differently. It actually calls reading an essay a quiet dialogue with the writer.
And that framing, it completely changes your posture as a reader. You aren't just this passive receptacle for facts anymore.
Right.
A critical essay is a structured argument. The writer has identified a problem in society and is essentially actively inviting you to trace their logic.
So you're participating in it.
Exactly.
Huh?
To actually participate in that quiet dialogue, you have to understand the architecture of their thought process.
Mm.
So you're looking for the core issue they're raising, the empirical support they offer, and then the ultimate conclusion they reach.
And there is a specific mechanical pivot that the guide points out, like a signpost that readers almost always gloss over.
Ah, yes, the word however.
Yes. The word however. The guide notes that writers often start by laying out a widely accepted societal belief. They might say something like, we live in an era of unprecedented digital connectivity, and most people believe this makes us closer than ever.
And then comes the pivot. They say, however, this constant surface-level connection is actually driving an epidemic of profound isolation.
Okay, let's unpack this because that is huge. So really, the word however isn't just a grammatical transition.
No, not at all.
It's the exact moment the writer takes off their mask. Like, the first part was just setting the stage with what everyone else thinks so they can cleanly juxtapose it against their actual thesis.
Precisely. You have to hunt for the friction.
It's like being a detective looking for the however spotlight. Because if you stop reading before that word, you walk away thinking the writer agrees with the very premise they're actually trying to dismantle.
That's a great way to put it. That's how you read for critical thought.
Yeah.
But when we shift to the second category, the practical texts, the reading strategy has to change entirely.
Right, because we are talking about contracts, instruction manuals, civic notices, workplace protocols, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And reading a practical text isn't a dialogue at all.
No, it's more like reading computer code.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a programmer and you miss an if-then condition, the software doesn't just run a little poorly, it crashes.
It completely fails.
And the text gives examples of this, like the difference between bring either a student ID or a driver's license versus bring both.
Or a deadline that says by 5 p.m. versus after 5 p.m.
Yes. It's like diffusing a bomb. If you skip one tiny condition, the whole thing just blows up in your face. Words like only, except, and unless, they are literally the syntax of real life.
Well, the underlying mechanism here is cognitive load.
Okay, how so?
So the human brain is incredibly efficient, right? It constantly looks for heuristics or mental shortcuts, basically, to save energy. When we look at a document, our brain naturally wants to skim for nouns and verbs.
Right, we see Friday, meeting, bring report, and we think we're good.
Exactly. Our brain assumes it has the full picture. But the authors of practical texts, especially legal texts, they rely on precision. And sometimes they actively rely on your tendency to skim.
Oh, wow. So they literally bury the unless clause in, like paragraph 4, knowing you won't read it.
They absolutely do. So a modern reader must actively override their brain's default skimming setting. You have to force yourself to slow down and hunt for those qualifiers.
That makes so much sense.
Because the consequences of misreading a critical essay might just be that you, I don't know, misunderstand a philosopher's stance on technology. But the consequences of misreading a practical text, your insurance claim is denied, your application is rejected, or you lose a massive deposit.
The stakes couldn't be more literal. But okay, if we take this need for precision and apply it to where we actually spend most of our time, which is the digital world, things get incredibly messy.
Oh, very messy.
Because we were swimming in this endless ocean of information that is heavily manipulated and just moving at light speed.
The digital landscape is the ultimate testing ground for these skills, primarily because platforms, especially social media, fundamentally strip language of its context.
Right, you just get these floating fragments.
Exactly. You're left with highly emotional, fragmented thoughts. And the guide explicitly warns readers to watch out for extreme words in this environment. Words like always, never, everyone, or completely.
Because reality is rarely that absolute. I mean, if a post says, everyone knows this new policy is a total disaster and will completely ruin the economy, that raw emotion is almost always functioning as a smokescreen for weak empirical support.
That is the exact psychological mechanism at play. Extreme words are used to basically hack your emotional response.
They bypass the filter.
Right, they make a claim sound authoritative and urgent, which bypasses your critical thinking filter completely. It becomes a substitute for actual evidence. And this leads directly into one of the most critical skills the guide covers, which is the deliberate blurring of fact and opinion.
Now, you're probably listening to this thinking you already know the difference between fact and opinion. I mean, it's elementary school stuff, right? A fact is verifiable, an opinion is subjective.
Simple enough on paper.
Exactly. But think about how corporate PR or political campaigns operate. They don't just hand you a pure opinion. They smuggle it inside a fact.
It's the Trojan horse strategy.
Yes, the Trojan horse strategy. A company will put out a press release saying, our third quarter profits are up 12%. Now, that is a verifiable fact. You can check the ledger. But the very next sentence will be proving that our new corporate restructuring plan is a massive success.
See, they've just grafted an evaluation and opinion onto a factual statistic so seamlessly that the reader's brain encodes the entire paragraph as a single factual unit.
Wow.
They rely on the momentum of the truth to carry the opinion across the finish line.
That is so manipulative.
It is. The data shows profits are up, yes. But it does not inherently prove the restructuring plan caused it. It could have been, a shift in the global market, a competitor going bankrupt, or a dozen other factors.
So a strong reader stops at the period after 12% and recognizes that a boundary has just been crossed.
Exactly.
Okay, look, I hear you on the theory of all this. It makes perfect sense. But let's be real about the era we are entering right now. We have generative AI.
Oh, yes. The AI question.
Right, because if I can take a 50-page corporate report or a really dense legal contract and just drop it into ChatGPT and prompt it to summarize the facts and list the conditions, haven't we essentially outsourced this entire process?
That's a fair point.
I mean, why do I need to painfully hunt for the how or whether or separate the opinion if an AI can do it in 3 seconds with perfect fluency?
This raises an important question, and it is probably the most pressing question in modern education.
Yeah.
But it's exactly why these foundational skills are more vital now than they have ever been.
Really, more vital.
Yes. And you just used the key word yourself, fluency. Generative AI is capable of producing incredibly fluent text. But fluency is not the same thing as accuracy. And it is certainly not the same thing as truth.
Okay, break that down for me. Why does the AI's fluency make it dangerous?
Because we need to understand the mechanism of how large language models actually work. They are not thinking in the human sense. They don't possess a mental model of reality, nor do they have a concept of truth.
Right, they're just predicting words.
Exactly. They are extraordinarily sophisticated predictive text engines. They calculate the statistical probability of the next word based on the massive data sets they were trained on.
So they are designed to sound plausible, not to be factual.
Bingo. And human beings are biologically wired to trust confidence.
Oh, that's dangerous.
It is. When an AI outputs a perfectly structured, grammatically flawless paragraph that uses professional jargon, our brains automatically assign authority to it. If the AI hallucinates, meaning it confidently predicts a sequence of words that is factually entirely false, a person with weak reading skills will just blindly accept it.
Because they see the formatting and the tone, and it just looks like the truth.
Yes, the AI provides the speed, but the human is solely responsible for the judgment. An LLM might summarize a contract and completely hallucinate a favorable clause just because that clause statistically appears in similar documents, even if it's totally absent from yours.
Wait, that could ruin you.
Absolutely. So a strong reader, someone equipped with the tools from this guide, uses the AI to scan the bulk, but then applies their own critical eye to verify the claims, check the conditions, and revise the output.
So AI is a powerful engine, but your language arts skills are the steering wheel. Without them, you're just driving blindfolded at 100 miles an hour.
That's a perfect analogy,
Yeah.
yes.
To steer effectively, though, you need a precise internal map. If you're going to judge an AI's output or untangle a politician's opinion from their facts, you need the right internal tools. And the guide argues that this tool is your vocabulary.
Yes, vocabulary.
Do not vocabulary as a way to, show off at dinner parties. It frames vocabulary as the literal foundation of human thought.
It's a profound linguistic principle. Vague words lead to vague thinking. The limits of your language are the limits of your world.
I love that. Think about a standard corporate meeting. Someone pitches a new initiative and a colleague chimes in and says, I think this new plan is bad.
Right, what does that even mean?
Exactly. The idea is totally amorphous. As a team, you can't fix bad. But if that colleague has a robust vocabulary, they don't use that giant clunky paint roller of a word. They use a fine-tipped brush.
They specify the exact nature of their critique.
Right. They say the plan is unrealistic, which immediately signals a problem with the timeline or the budget. Or they say it's ineffective, which points to a flaw in the strategy. Or maybe it's unfair, which highlights an ethical or human resources issue.
Just by swapping out one generic word for a precise one, the thought itself takes shape.
It becomes actionable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Vocabulary allows you to divide ideas with surgical precision. But acquiring those words, particularly abstract concepts, requires a specific method.
Right, you can't just memorize a dictionary.
No, the guide suggests that we have to tether abstract words to concrete realities.
It uses the word publicness as an example, right?
Yes, publicness is a highly abstract noun. If you just read the definition, it doesn't stick.
Yeah.
But if you connect it to a concrete, scenario-like understanding that a physical park is a shared space where your music affects others, or, realizing that a viral social media post extends far beyond your immediate friend group.
Oh, then the word publicness suddenly becomes a usable cognitive tool.
Exactly. It becomes a lens through which you can evaluate behavior and policy.
And having that fine-tipped brush of a vocabulary also allows you to organize your thinking structurally, especially when interacting with others. The guide emphasizes the power of contrasting terms. Like, for instance, understanding the fundamental difference between a debate and a dialogue.
Oh, that distinction alone can change the entire trajectory of a conversation.
Really? How so?
Well, a debate is structurally competitive, right?
Yeah.
Its purpose is to test opposing positions and determine a winner and a loser.
Right.
But a dialogue, conversely, is structurally collaborative. Its goal is to synthesize different viewpoints to deepen mutual understanding.
That makes total sense. If you walk into a performance review thinking it's a debate, you're going to act defensive and argumentative.
You're fighting the whole time.
Yeah. But if you walk in knowing it's a dialogue, your posture completely changes. Having the precise words gives you control over your own expression. It lets you adjust your tone, disagree respectfully, and navigate complex social dynamics without causing unnecessary friction.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it serves as a perfect transition into the final and perhaps most deeply humanizing section of this entire curriculum.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, we've discussed how to read critical essays, how to decode practical texts, and how to defend against digital manipulation. But language arts isn't just about reading words.
Yeah.
It is equally about reading the spaces between the words. It is
Yes.
about reading people.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This was the most striking part of the material for me. The curriculum includes this short story titled The Day Silence Found a Name.
It's a beautiful piece.
It really is. It centers on a high school student named Hanada who constantly struggles to speak up in group discussions. She has all these complex thoughts swirling in her head, but she just freezes.
And the class in the story is tackling a very meta question. How can we communicate feelings that are difficult to put into words?
Right.
And through this exercise, Hinata arrives at a brilliant realization about the nature of silence. Because in our fast-paced society, we are conditioned to view silence in a conversation as a failure.
Yeah, like an awkward void
Yeah,
or a breakdown in communication.
exactly. But Hinata realizes that silence is not empty at all. She describes it beautifully as a waiting room for words.
A waiting room for words. I love that. The silence is actually dense with meaning.
It is.
I mean, it might contain anger, sure, but it could also contain worry, confusion, or just the profound need to process a complex emotion so you don't accidentally hurt someone with a careless, knee-jerk response.
But there is a psychological danger here.
What's that?
The danger lies in what happens when that silence remains unlabeled. Human beings are incredibly uncomfortable with ambiguity.
Oh, totally.
If you are in a high-stakes meeting or a tense argument with a partner, and you suddenly just go quiet without explanation, the other person's brain will immediately try to fill that void.
And it almost always fills it with a perceived threat.
Yeah.
If I pitch an idea and you just stare at me in silence, my brain goes straight into fight or flight. I assume you hate the idea, you think I'm incompetent, or you're just outright rejecting me.
Exactly. Unlabeled silence breeds paranoia, which is why the story introduces a vital communication tool: bridge sentences.
Bridge sentences.
Yes. These are short, highly practical phrases designed specifically to give your silence a name. If you feel overwhelmed and need to enter that waiting room for words, you don't just shut down. You deploy a bridge sentence.
You say something like, I need a moment to process this, or I'm not ignoring you, I just want to make sure I articulate this carefully.
And it causes a remarkable shift in responsibility. The speaker takes ownership of labeling their cognitive pause, and by doing so, they explicitly relieve the listener of the anxiety of guessing.
You know, this flies in the face of everything our culture currently rewards. We celebrate the witty comeback. We idolize the person who can fire off the perfect response in milliseconds.
Oh, absolutely.
The entire architecture of text messaging and social media is built on instant reaction. But this text is arguing that true communication requires us to aggressively defend the right to be slow.
Yeah.
Because speed is a metric of efficiency, but it is not a metric of understanding.
Wow.
If your ultimate goal is genuine consensus building, whether you are negotiating a treaty, managing a corporate team, or navigating a marriage, you cannot rely on pure speed. Consensus requires cognitive processing time.
Right.
Bridge sentences create a psychologically safe space for thoughts that are still forming. They prevent the catastrophic misunderstandings that occur when we force half-baked emotions into the open, just to avoid an awkward pause.
It is so deeply practical. And
Mhm.
looking back at everything we've covered, the core mission of this modern guide really distills down to 3 foundational commands. Read carefully, think clearly, express ideas in your own words.
It sounds simple.
It sounds like a poster in an elementary school classroom. But as we've explored today, executing those commands in the modern world is literally an act of sheer survival. It demands an active, engaged mind. It means slowing down to find the however before you accept an argument. It means overriding your brain's desire to skim so you don't miss the unless in a contract.
Right.
It means organizing your internal vocabulary so you aren't a victim of vague reactionary emotions. Above all, it means taking ultimate responsibility for the information you absorb and the ideas you project into the world.
And you, the learner, can literally test these tools the moment this deep dive ends. The next time you open a news article, don't just read the headline in the first paragraph. Scan the text, hunt down the however, or the yet, or the but in reality.
Find out what the writer is actually arguing.
Exactly. If you are drafting an email and you type a vague word like bad or good, stop. Grab your fine tip brush. Ask yourself, is this inefficient? Is it risky? Is it unprecedented?
Be precise.
Yes. And the next time you find yourself freezing up in a difficult conversation, don't just let the silence sit there like a threat. Build a bridge. Tell them, I'm not ignoring you, I just need a moment to process.
Those small, deliberate choices are where the philosophy of language arts meets the pavement of reality. The text we examine today makes one thing explicitly clear. Language does not merely describe society, it actively constructs it.
It really does.
The laws we follow, the digital spaces we inhabit, the relationships we maintain, they are all built from the raw material of communication, which leaves us with a final thought to consider.
Let's hear it.
If the precise words we choose, the critical lenses we apply to data, and the bridge sentences we use to name our silences are the literal building blocks of reality, what kind of world are you constructing today?